Tragic final years of Britain's Marilyn Monroe. How 1950s glamour girl Sabrina died. A poverty-stricken paraplegic recluse in LA after botched back surgery destroyed her life. Britain's answer to Marilyn Monroe, who once insured her breasts for £100,000, died aged 80 in November last year, but her death has only just come to light. Born Norma Ann Sykes in a terraced house in Stockport in May 1936, Sabrina had humble beginnings, but went on to shoot for the stars. She had little discernible talent, lacking the ability to sing or dance, and was often labeled a dumb blonde in the less politically correct 1950s. However, she vanished from the limelight by the 1970s and in her later years lived as a paraplegic recluse in a scruffy house in North Hollywood. She died of respiratory failure. The buxom blonde was brought up in a terraced house in Heavily, an area of Stockport, the daughter of mechanical engineer Walter Skies and seamstress Annie. A strong swimmer, at 9 years old she swam a mile a day at the local baths. She contracted rheumatic fever and polio in childhood and spent long periods in hospital. After one operation there were fears a leg may have to be amputated. She wore calipers and had scars for life. Doctors prescribed a series of exercises to build up her muscles, and she spent hours every day swimming in a heated pool and some bodybuilding exercises. Apparently her chest expansion was a result of these workouts. She left Stockport at the age of 12, when her parents took over a boarding house in Blackpool. She moved to London aged 16, where she soon realized her voluptuous figure, with a 41 inches bust and 18 inches waist, was her best asset. After her first nude photo shoot did not go the way she hoped, she eventually hit the big time, becoming like Diana Dawes and June Wilkinson, Britain's equivalent of Marilyn Monroe. With bright white hair and figure-hugging clothes, she sashayed onto the stage and began a 16-week run on TV show Before Your Very Eyes in 1955. She seldom spoke, instead opting to pout and feign astonishment as host Arthur Askey joked about her striking appearance. She was reportedly the first woman to show her cleavage on British television. Askey's producer Bill Ward renamed her Sabrina, after the 1954 film of that title starring Humphrey Bogart and Audrey Hepburn, which was released in Britain as Sabrina Fair. In his autobiography Askey wrote, "I hit on the idea of having a dumb blonde around the set. We held auditions for a suitable dumb cluck and found one in Norma Sykes. She had a lovely face and figure, but could not act, sing, dance, or even walk properly." Her fame grew and she started receiving 1,000 fan letters a week. Personal appearances often descended into riots. About 4,000 people turned up to a shop opening in Sheffield, for which her fee was £100. The average weekly wage was £7.50 at the time. Her dress was regularly almost torn off by fans and she frequently sold stories to the press. She was once ejected from the royal enclosure at Ascot for her unsuitable attire. She even insured her assets for £100,000 with Lloyd's of London. She owned a Cadillac with the number plate S41, in tribute to her bra size. She starred in a number of UK films, including Blue Murder St. Trinian's, but had fairly minor roles. She moved to the United States where she performed in a touring cabaret and found herself in the company of huge Hollywood stars like Elvis Presley and Frank Sinatra. She was a friend of Sammy Davis Jr. and went on shopping trips with Lucille Ball. Sabrina even shared a television studio with Cuba's Fidel Castro in April 1959, insisting to her friends she was very courteous and respectful. She was popular in Australia, where 10,000 people turned up to see her arrival at Perth Airport in June 1960, but she stayed in the US where she married Dr. Harry Mulshima, a wealthy Hollywood gynecologist in November 1967. The couple owned a 40-foot yacht and several sports cars. In the US she was known as the British Bosom Lady. However, she made the grave mistake of visiting Cuba as a guest of Fidel Castro's government, a move that alienated her in the American media. When her marriage was dissolved in 1977, Sabrina moved from the Woodland Hills area to a small, scruffy house in North Hollywood where she lived as a recluse. She suffered chronic back problems, for which she successfully sued her surgeon, and shied away from public life as the years went on. In later years she was paraplegic. In 1990 her mother moved to Hollywood to look after her, but died 5 years later. She was then visited regularly by a small group of friends. She died last November, but her death wasn't known until a week ago, such was her retreat from public life. Sabrina, the glamour model and actress, was born on the 19th of May, 1936 and died of respiratory failure on the 24th of November, 2016, aged 80.